Hello again, world. On this session, I'm going to be speaking about my personal truth and experiences on the value of a college education. Um, I want to say that it really is a good thing to have, but at the same time, what it's worth really is debatable for a lot of people, especially in this day and age. And my truth is going to be more on the economic value of it rather than the philosophical type of value, the satisfaction that you get from the thirst for knowledge being quenched. So let me say that college here in the States and maybe in other nations around the world, um, it's pretty expensive, no matter how you put it. And to get out after 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, depending on how long it will take for you to get your degree, by the time that you get out, you're probably going to be somewhere between $30,000 to $50,000 in debt, depending on where you go. Some more or less, cheaper or more expensive. And the jobs that you supposedly can get uh, will be ranging depending on your profession. But even most entry levels out of college expect to be making somewhere between 15 to 20 to 30, 40, maybe even 50 with your degree and the field of study that you're going into. Now, the thing is, if you're coming out with that much debt of $30,000 to $50,000, and your job is only, let's say, 20K, you're already in the negative for the ratio of debt to assets. So, and then even if you were making, let's say, 40K, coming out with living expenses, just think about taxes being taken out. It's safe to say that you can estimate around 30% of your gross income to be lost. So whatever salary that you're getting, let's say 40K, tack off 30% of that, you're going to be left with a good, let's say, 33 or so, 33 or so K a year. And if you're going by that on months, that's around 3,000 something. Take a third off of that, you got 2,000 something. Depending on how much your rent, utilities, and other bills are, you're just barely getting by. Especially if you have a buttload of credit card debt. And being the typical student coming out of college, most likely you will. Some will range from 2,000 up to 10 to 15,000. So trying to make the minimum on all of that, I know from experience that you're pretty much going to be close to being in the red or meeting that fine line of making ends meet every month and living paycheck to paycheck. So unless you automatically get out making six figures, it's going to be rough. Now, with that degree in mind, you got your bachelor's. Most job places hire also on experience, but to even get into the door of most corporations, job prospects, they want that diploma. So that's the first hurdle that you got to get through. And then all this talk about, oh, you get more money when you have your master's and your PhD. Well, if we put that into perspective as well, so now you have $30,000 to $50,000 in debt just from a bachelor's after 4 years. And let's say you're making 30 to 40K. So you're still technically in the negative or in the red as far as debt to assets, just based on numerical values of this is your college debt, this is your salary. You go back for a master's maybe 2 to 3 years. So half the time, still just as much, another 30 to 50K for your master's. They say you get a price or a salary increase if you get your master's. Now, let's see here. They say anywhere from a 5 to 10 or 15% is typically normal to average or even best for your raise. Now, if we're looking at let's say a 40K salary and you got your master's, and let's say that they'll give you a 10 to 15% of that. That still, in the grand scheme of things, is somewhere between $4,000 to $6,000 of an increase. So that's what, maybe $20 to $50 extra per paycheck. So in the grand scheme of things, another $6,000 a year. That's your 10 to 15%. And in numerical value, that's between 4 to 6 to even 7,000. And you just incurred another 15 to 30 to 50K debt for a master's. Now, let's say you go back and get your PhD. Okay, another 1 to 2 years, estimating another 30 to 50K for the specialized courses to get your doctorate. So this one, you have a higher shot for your raises, but I'm still estimating between 15 to 20%. And if we're still building upon the 40 to 45 or 46 now, so let's say that brings you up to what, 55, even 60K that you're making. Now let's, for argument's sake, just go with the low value here. If it was 30K for your bachelor's, let's go with another 30K for your master's, and then another 30K for your PhD. So let's say between 90K out of that. You know, if we want to lowball that, we'll even go with 50 to 60. So 50 to 60K out of that, and you're making only 5 to 10%, even up to 20% if you're a hell of a negotiator to negotiate with your boss on getting a raise and fighting tooth and nail. All of that just for those increases, and you're still in the negative. Now, the only plus side to that is that your master's and your PhD, it wasn't for naught, but typically in the workplace, they usually say that you gotta have 5 to 10 years experience before that master's or that PhD will really kick off, and you'll start earning what you supposedly deserve. So you pretty much have your grace period and your period where you're going for 5 to 10 years, pretty much making chump change, being in the red and negative 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60,000, you know, waiting for your employer to come around and give you that raise that you so deserve. So that's been the analysis of my truth in college education. And by all means, this is not to deter or discourage you from getting your college education, because at heart, I myself am a scholar, and I feel that my educational career will not end with just a bachelor's, but trying to reasonably and logically sort all this out, it really doesn't add up, make sense, or any of those values. But if you don't have education, you really don't have anything. So education is important, and the purpose of this video was not to demean higher ed. It was just to try to figure out what the hell are they doing, and how can they value this, in such a way that seems kind of retarded, at least in my opinion. So make sure you get your educational degree out there, because you're going to need it in these rough economic times. Thanks.